Hi everyone, I'm Catalina. Welcome to my channel where we learn how to use video and YouTube to market your business and showcase you as an expert. But before we start building a successful marketing, we need to work on our foundations. And today we have a very special guest who's going to help us with that. She's nationally recognized as a branding and marketing expert who runs a Double Dutch creative agency. It's a very successful marketing agency out of Denver. Her heart breaks every time she sees a startup suffer any sort of marketing overwhelm. Please help me welcome Heather Campbell. Hi, Heather. Thank you for being here
Hi,
with us.
Catalina. Thanks for having me.
So, branding is a topic that has fascinated me since I started my career in marketing because it's really the key for a successful marketing. So, what do you think is the most common misunderstanding about branding? Is it just about a logo? But what is it really? What is market? What is branding?
Well, I think branding is inherently misunderstood because today we have such an intimate relationship with marketing and with media and with products and different kinds of brands. So we have a little bit of familiarity with it. And so I think that people feel like it's such this natural relationship that they should naturally know how to brand themselves. And because we're used to seeing the end product, where a lot of people start focusing on is the logo and their identity. There's this really cool book out right now called The Brand Story, which I really love. But those things are all components of your brand. But the thing that people maybe do not know and startups may not know is that your brand is the consummation of the total experience your customer has with your product or service. And so I worked in an industry, I worked corporately for many years before I started my agency. And we built the first national brands in apartments. So if anyone has rented an apartment here in the United States, I'm sure it works the same in Canada, and you have a short-term lease, you have instant credit check, you have online leasing, you have online rent payment. I worked for the company that brought all of that to the industry. And so I was able to learn at a really young time, at a young age in my career, how important the brand is, because it really helps to serve as the touchstone for everything that you do as a business. So we always start up. And so then when I started my own, and then I ran marketing, for other companies after that. And when I started my own agency, I started to see where the brand was just misunderstood. A lot of times people will say, oh, I'm working on my brand and that's my logo. And that's part of it, but it's so much deeper than that. So it's sort of, it's sort of like it ends up being so foundational to everything that you do, and not having a brand, I always say, is like frosting a cake and then realizing, oh great, I forgot to bake the cake. It's very difficult to retrofit, right? So it's just easier to bake the cake, and then that really makes things easier for what's to come. So just as the big takeaway here, it's the brand is the sum of your customers' experiences. So if you sort of think about it, this is a really easy designation. Do you like Coke or Pepsi? Do you have a preference for one or the other?
Coke.
Coca-Cola. All right.
Yes.
Good go. Okay. So even when my sister and I were in high school, we used to make these jokes. Like we would say, oh, Coke is really cool and Pepsi's just like not that cool. We would say like, oh, that's so Pepsi. And then we would start to make up all these analogies, like Band-Aid is to Coke as Curad is to Pepsi. Like all these and we didn't know it. We ended up both being in marketing, which I think is sort of funny. But it really brands help to simplify the decision-making process for so many people. And if you think about it, Coke and Pepsi are essentially the same product, yet there's a strong preference for both. I used to wait on tables all through college, and I'll tell you, Coke drinkers, if you do not have Coke, they will not get a soda. Pepsi drinkers, I'm telling you, they're indiscriminate. They'll say, fine, I'll take a Coke. They don't care. I was like, Pepsi. I'm joking. I'm just giving Pepsi drinkers a little bit of grief. But if you think about comparable brands that do the same thing, Target and Walmart, essentially Victoria's Secret and Fruit of the Loom, right? Right? Underwear. So Lululemon and Athleta, right? So each one of those they have a strong sense of their brand, how they create value, how they show up in the marketplace, and that informs everything that they do after. It doesn't work the other way around. A logo doesn't inform your experience. It's an expression of what's to come.
So what do you think then if, let's say, because a lot of new entrepreneurs, they jump into and you say like the logo and stuff, and they don't have the brand. So what do you think are the most common mistakes you've seen entrepreneurs doing when they don't have the brand? Like what kind of like what do you see is the most common thing happening when they don't have the brand?
Oh my gosh. So when I said it breaks my heart to see people get overwhelmed by marketing, I really believe that because marketing is not rocket science, but there's a definite process and sequence to it, right? And so whether you're doing it yourself or you're doing a little bit of yourself or outsourcing it, you need to know really essentially what you're doing. So what I see, and I really saw this when I started my own agency, and it's not just startups, it's also, I work with some really big multi-billion-dollar real estate companies who are in the same boat as startups, which is they start marketing too soon. So if I say there are 5 rungs, to a ladder to get up to a roof to say, hey, everybody, I'm open for business,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that startups start usually on rungs 4 to 9. So again, marketing's not rocket science, but there is a sequence. So if you can probably maybe jump up and get on the 4th rung, and you might be able to figure out a way to get up to the roof. But it's so much easier if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you just have that construct just to keep on going. So I just think because people don't know, you've been a marketer for many years. My whole career has been in marketing and branding. And so it's just something that we know. It's almost like taking a cooking class with a master chef and they teach you like, oh, do this and this. And then like before you know it, you can debone your own chicken breast. That's never happened in my life, but I think like what if? But you know how like you just learn a little trick and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. And it really starts with the brand, which is really understanding who do you want to serve. I mean, I could just talk about this forever. So I don't want to.
No, actually, no, this actually leads me very well into what I wanted to go. And it's kind of like, what kind of tips do we have? Like, do you have to get people back on track? Because you say, like you said,
Right.
we identify, or people maybe feel like, oh my God, like seriously, I need help because my business is not growing. Maybe it's not, I'm stuck. I just don't know what else to do. Maybe I need to go back to basics. So, what kind of
Right.
tips do you have for people that want to go back to basics? How do you get back to basics? How do you do that?
Right. And I'll tell you this, companies again of all shapes and sizes do this kind of work and do brand refreshes. And so it's not anything that doesn't happen in the real world. It's not like big companies like Coca-Cola don't make big marketing mistakes and then have to correct it like in the market. But because of so Coke came out with new Coke in the 80s, everybody hated it. And they had this huge black eye, but they brought back the original Coke and they really owned it. And because they had this really good relationship with their consumers said, we do not like where you're going. And they responded to the market. That's good branding. So I just think it's best to get on track. And if you've already started a business, the perfect thing is you have some business context for where your frustrations are or where you're feeling overwhelmed. So all of this will help. If you haven't started, oh my gosh, you're going to save yourself so much time and heartache when you really understand your brand value. So the way that so I'm just going to, the overview of the sequence, like the 5 rungs on the ladder, the way
Mhm.
that I look at it, it's the way that I learned my marketing, like in my
Yes.
corporate world, and then how I really do it in my agency is we start with brand, really understanding your brand value. How do you uniquely create impact and create value for your customers? What do you bring to the market? How do you stand out? Because like I know, it's not enough to be the best. You have to be different. I
Yes.
think we get like 10,000 ads a day. You have to be able to cut through that clutter and make it super easy for people to understand why you are uniquely suited to solve their problems. So we start with brand. Then next is customers, really understanding your customers. What are they thinking their life is going to be like? What are their aspirations? What's getting in the way of them achieving their aspirations? And then what's happening as a result?
Okay.
And then what is that trigger point? This is something that I think a lot of people miss is what are the trigger points that's going to bring someone into the market that
Mhm.
they're actually going to start looking for a solution. So I could be thinking about exercising and working out, but there's going to be a trigger point where I'm going to be like, I've had it. And now I'm going to like start taking yoga classes. So I'm going
Okay.
to start exploring, or I've been in video, like I've been interested in doing video for my business, and I've tried everything else in videos. And so I'm just going to give YouTube video a go. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be a trigger point that's going to bring someone into the market. So you want to bring all of those things in and then understand sort of where are they, because all of the aspirations and obstacles that happens before someone even gets to you. That's sort of the
Mhm.
imagining phase, right? So someone's going to think like, for me, oh, I'm going to like rebrand my business, or I'm going to brand my business, and I'm going
Yeah.
to have like a logo, and it's going to be so successful, and I'm going to do like, I'm going to have like Kendall Jenner following me on Instagram. Like everyone just thinks like, I don't know what it's going to be like, but you really want to understand how someone is coming into your situation, because then third step, you can really think about your product and pricing lineup and make sure that those things are aligned. So think about the sequence of things. Now I understand my brand value, how I compete, how I show up, why I matter, the eternal question of marketing, why should people care,
Yeah.
right? I know who I want to serve, and I understand exactly their aspirations, where they are, how I can help them, what's bringing them into the market. Now I deliver my answer to the market,
Yes.
right? Because the tighter you can focus on those things, do you see this in your side of the business? So many marketers want to cast a net in the ocean. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, let's go fishing in the baby pool. Let's really figure out your customers, just because it just, again, helps to create context for then what you're going to offer. And that's when you're able to, because it also breaks my heart to see people discount their pricing. I
Yeah.
mean,
The price war. Yes. Uh-huh.
oh, and especially women. No, no, no. I'm looking right at you. Do not. Oh my gosh. Like the
Yes.
first place they go, it is like, it is ingrained. And we
Yes.
have got, oh, believe me, even in my own business, I felt the pull, and I'm like, no, I won't do it. And so, but this is where you're going to have the context then to price on value
Okay.
and really start thinking about, oh, okay, I can, I have all these different things I can offer. You're starting to take a bigger look at what you can offer. Like I have a client I'm working with right now. She's a young therapist. Going out of the gate rate is $95 an hour. And I'm just like, oh my God, we live in Denver. It's a super affluent, very like,
Yes.
good for therapists environment. And her approach is really cool. Anyways, we got her $25 higher an hour, but we're adding on a few things into her lineup, like some resources and some guided meditations to make it worth that additional
And I guess
money, right?
and I
So it's
guess
not like you just boost your price. You got to make sure you're delivering that value.
and I think it goes back to what we were talking about branding and understanding your brand. It's like, why am I unique? Why am I offering? And once you do that
Right.
exercise, you realize not only how much you're worth, but how much you can actually, how value you offer. So you don't feel as bad with, your money blocks or whatever, but like,
Oh, money blocks, self promotion. I do this for a living, and I work with people and companies. Like I work with a lot of startups, so I see how personal it is for people. And so I know this because I work them through this by helping to show them their own authentic awesomeness, right? And when I started my own business, I actually thought this is going to be easy for me
yeah.
because I do this. And I was absolutely shocked at how personal it was, and how many, just because it's very different when someone hires me for my opinion, but it was very different just sort of putting something out there saying, oh, I think this is generally how you should market your business. So, but really sitting down, and when I started to feel overwhelmed, what's really funny is I started to do the same things my clients did, like do the same exact things I tell people, do not do that. I was doing the exact same things, which I think is hilarious. And then I was just like, oh my God, I should know better because I have an agency. And then I'm like, oh yeah, duh, that's right. I have an agency. Why don't you put yourself through your own paces? And I'll tell you, yeah, it totally works. So like, that's the thing is I'm like, I don't know why I thought I was immune to going through the same steps I would recommend to anybody. So even in my own business, like I've relied on those own basic building blocks. So then when you have your brand and that value, right, you know who you want to serve, you have your product and pricing. You're pricing on your value. Yes, that's the best. Now you're ready for your website. And I know there's a lot of people out there. We're part of this community where some of the coaches are like, you do not need a website. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, you do. It's so much easier to have one at the beginning. And if nothing else, it's going to put you through your initial marketing and help you set the aesthetic for your brand. I'll tell you, we at my agency, that when we start doing brand identity is after stage 2. So we have a really good understanding of the brand, of the customers, well, and of the product, and of the, I should say after 3, because then we have a good understanding of the full picture. So a lot of people start with their logo,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
that's like that's like step 3A, 3B, down way down the road. Then your website, and now you start doing and putting together a realistic marketing plan, because now you're ready to market. When you understand your brand and your value, and you understand who you're going to serve, you'll know how to message to them, you'll know how to reach them, because
Mhm.
you'll have a better sense of context of where they are and how you can get in front of them organically, or either organically or through paid sources. And then you just have so much context. You have product and pricing, you own your pricing, you feel good about it, you have a website ready to go that you can send people to for information, to be your silent selling machine. And then you have your marketing plan. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, especially you probably see this a lot
Mhm.
in your line of business with video,
Mhm.
it feels so organic and in the moment. And we were talking about, like, even setting up for this, like how this whole background, like I've reconfigured it a couple of times because I do video, for when I do
Yeah.
video. And and brands who do it, like big brands who do it, have whole teams of people managing it for them. So what we see in media usually is the culmination of weeks, if not months of work. So it's
Mhm.
funny that we sort of, and they make it feel like, oh, we just do this together, but they didn't.
Yes.
So those are the building blocks. So even if someone's like, oh my God, like, just, I just hope they remember those 5 things,
You know what?
because it's,
Go ahead,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. You go ahead.
I was gonna say, it was really cool that you mentioned about the Coca-Cola example, because a lot of businesses that start and they're like, "Oh my God, I need to go back and do all this work," but it's not. No, really, like it's actually kind of like going back. So, like you say, Coca-Cola
Mm,
does it. Everybody does it. So I know you put together a really cool, kind of like it's like a started, like a branding, kind of startup, or going and doing it again. So
right. Yes.
talk about a little bit about that, because I think it's really cool. I looked at it and I'm working on it myself, and I'm like, oh my God, this thing is amazing. I think more people should
Oh, good.
go down and
I'm
do it. No,
so
I
glad
loved
you
it.
like
I
it.
loved it. Yes, yes.
So, really to help people get started, and in marketing, there are things that we know. And one of them is, you just, like, really, really, I cannot even say it enough, like really, 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 like I'm always like really, 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 you must own your differentiators. Like, you have to know how you compete in this marketplace. It does not happen by accident. And when I see people down the road being really overwhelmed, I was just talking with someone the other day who spends $1,000 a week on social media advertising. I'm like, wait, that's $52,000 a year. I just did
Hmm.
that math in my head. But I was like, oh my God, without a whole lot of context. Like, I just think about what kind of payoff has
Yes.
to be on the other side of that for that person to get a return on that investment, because they're sort of in it, not even knowing, oh, if I could just tell you the number of people who are doing things like advertising on Facebook. And I'm like, why are you doing that? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I guess I thought I had to. And I'm like, oh, no. Because you just don't know. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I don't hold anyone. It's like, we honestly just don't know. And those media companies are so convincing in thinking that they're our friends, but they're not. They're advertising platforms. So they're about making money. So they make it really easy for people to just waste a lot of time and money. So I just thought, okay, what is the easiest way to help someone? If I know branding is the most important thing you can do for your company, it's your touchstone. It's when someone asks you what you do, you're like, I do this,
Hmm.
and they have a complete understanding, and you don't feel weird about it, and you feel like, I can talk about my business. So I just put together a little mini branding course. So at my agency, I have a whole, like, big brand discovery process when I work with clients. And so I took some of my favorite questions and the ones that I know really get people thinking about their business in a different way. And I put those together they're just 5 questions. So it's super easy to manage. And then so if you ever, like, in Colombia, did they have Mad Libs growing up? Those little fill in the blanks, like someone would ask
Yes.
you, for like a noun or an adjective.
Uh-huh.
And so what I've done is I've created a brand Mad Lib. So if the two things you need are, the first one is really knowing and owning your differentiators, because that's how you're going to start competing when you start marketing. So think about marketing. We think about how just things, how is this different? How does it solve problems differently? And then the second is you have to have a good brand positioning statement.
Mm.
Like there is not a company in the world that has a good brand or that has not worked. If you're working with an agency and they do not give you a brand positioning statement, they need to change the name of their business, just because.
Get your money back.
Yeah, totally. Fast. Like it is seriously, I cannot underscore the importance of it. I built a construct that changed an entire industry, and how we were so good at it is that we were very intentional around our brand. So even me as head of corporate communications and marketing could go to our CEO and say, hey, we're doing something and it's not consistent with our brand.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that we wouldn't always, maybe they would still do it, because I know that business is sometimes bigger than me. But sometimes we would stop, and but lots of times we would stop and course correct. Or
Mm.
it gives people, especially as you're growing your business too, it gives you the construct to bring people on board who are
Yeah.
like valued, because you want people to really be what you're about, especially at the early stages of building your business. So this brand Mad Lib is designed to just, you take the answers to these 5 questions, you literally fill in the blank. I couldn't possibly make it any easier unless I did it for you. Like, and then I'm not joking, you have a pretty good no shit brand positioning statement.
That's
Like
a,
it's really funny. Yeah. So it's like, and you can revise it and use it however, like, I mean, but it is an awesome starting point because it clearly communicates to anybody who you want to serve, what problems you solve, how you're different from the competition. I always like to ask, one of my favorite questions is, if your brand were a car, like what is your brand kindred? If it was a car or a cocktail or another well-known brand. So I always like to say I'm like the Spanx of marketing coaches. Like I just take good stuff and I just like give it structure to, so you can like feel your best and get out there with like your assets, right? All I'm doing is just like reshaping them and sort of putting them out there in a different way. So yeah, so it's awesome.
I love it because yeah, I actually see that a lot of my clients wasting time, like you say, in advertising, and they're also like
Oh,
very unfocused. Like for when accounts, for example, I work with them, and I'm helping them, getting them to kind of build their brand online. But it's like when I ask them like, what are your brand, the kind of content to create, and you need to go back to that. So anyway, so there. Guys, you have it. I'm going to be including the link on the description so you can download it. Heather also probably be available for any questions. She's on Facebook as well. I'm going to be
oh yeah,
putting
Facebook
links.
at Hey Heather Campbell. So check
There we
me
go. So
out
I'm
for
going to be including
sure.
in that. And yeah, well, anyway, so thank you so much, Heather, for your time. I think this is super, super valuable because when I was talking to you, when I first met you, I'm like, oh my God, more people need to know your message because it is. I'm a marketer, like I said, and there's different branches, but branding is more than a logo. So thank you so much for being with us today. And yeah. And but anyway, so just remember, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I post videos like this every Wednesday, and I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful day. Oh, and don't forget to download Heather's access. It's not a download, it's an access
Yeah.
to Heather's course on the description. Have a wonderful day. Bye.